Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gemini Rising. My name is Natalie Sady, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Dr. Anne Wilkie. And our guest today is a registered nurse, a medical intuitive, a healer, and she has had a couple of near-death experiences, which blows my mind, and I have so many questions. Christa Marie, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining Anne and I to have this discussion. We're both so excited.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. It's really a pleasure. Thank you.
So the first question, because I'm just going to dive right in. The first question I have is, I mean, most people don't go through life having a near-death experience. You've actually had two. There was a car accident, and then you got sick in 2020 after black mold exposure, and you caught the virus that shall not be named. Were the experiences that you had, first of all, can you tell us just a little bit about them, and were they similar in what you experienced?
They were actually completely different. The first one was a result of a high-speed car accident. I collided with a Mack truck, and I was driving 99 miles an hour. It was 8 weeks into nursing school, and I was rushing to get my daughter. And I did this quick calculation in my head, like, if I drive double the speed, I'm going to get back, in time to test out for clinicals and stuff, because we were getting ready to go on break, and I hit a pothole, and I went into oncoming traffic, and there was a Mack truck coming, and everything turned into slow motion. So I was thinking, okay, if I get to the ditch in time, I can just drive my car out, no problem. I'm going to make it to get my daughter. I'll get back to nursing school. Everything's going to be fine. But then all of a sudden, I mean, when the truck was literally right in front of me and the collision it was just inevitable, I heard this voice, the most beautiful, soothing voice that I've ever heard. And she said, and it was Mary, it was Mother Mary. She said, "You're going to be okay." And then peace came over me, and I was just wrapped in love, but I was in pink light. And I really don't have a concept of how long I was there, but it was just so loving and peaceful, and there's nothing else that existed. And as a result of that NDE, I lost my long-term memory and my short-term memory, but I didn't have any other physical injuries on my body. So after the break, I actually just kept going to nursing school. And so the dying part is so small compared to what happened as a result of it. Because I began to see beyond. The veil was completely lifted, and I was given the gift of living in the now, because somebody would say something to me, and I mean, it was just gone. I could remember something maybe for like a couple seconds if I saw it, but then it was just gone. I was living moment by moment. So I began having dreams about the tests. I saw what the answers were. When questions were asked, it was all of this information was just being downloaded into me. And then I began seeing inside people's bodies, and I was having premonitions, like if someone was going to be in harm's way, and lots of things like that were happening. And when someone was thinking about another person, I would see a stream of light going from one person to another. And I started hearing people's thoughts, and But one thing that happened with that first NDE, all judgment was taken away. And if you're not living from your head, which is where a lot of people are living from, that's where all the judgment is and the overthinking. The only other place you can be is in your heart. If you're not in your head, then you're in your heart. So that was a tremendous gift. And then the difference between the first one and the second one, it seemed, well, it was just more, to me, it was more tragic because I was so ill afterwards. I still had so much healing to do. And, but with the second one, I had been exposed to mold in a building, and, I began feeling like my heart, it started beating slower, and I knew something was changing. And then I could feel the breath of life leaving me. And when I began to feel that, I said, divine team of medical angels. And that's when my soul rose above my body. And I was in bright white light. There were a team of angels, and they opened up my soul. It wasn't my body. My body was still here. And they opened my soul, and they were pulling things out and putting things in, and they were working so fast. And what's amazing is like you're aware of everything when this happens. There wasn't any fear.
Have your RV in place and look at the termites. That freaked me out.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, please continue. So there wasn't any fear?
Yeah, there wasn't any fear. And after I was in this bright white light with these angels, the angels were just brilliantly white. And I was standing in the middle of these gates that were open, and they were gold. And I wasn't on either side of them. I was right in the middle. And everything if I had walked through the gate, everything was gold as well. And there was a palace. It was so beautiful. And I considered staying. And I was so close to God. The best way that I can actually describe it is if you are standing in front of a mountain and you're so close to it that you can't see where it begins and ends. It's just so vast. So I'm contemplating staying, and God says to me, it's a mess down there. And I said, I know, I have to go back and help people. So I already knew what my soul mission was when I was there. And I look down at my body, and I'm also thinking, and my daughter's going to get married. I want to go to her wedding. And I just said, okay, I'll go back. And then I began flying. It was like I just was flying through this time of nothingness, or really floating. And it was just peaceful and quiet and beautiful. So the whole experience was really beautiful and amazing. There's no fear. And when I came back, I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't I ask to be healed while I was there? But it was because I was already healed. Everything is just perfect. So I thought, oh my goodness. So that healing journey was really, really intense, but so many amazing gifts came forward as a result of it. One day someone had reached out to me from Minnesota, and I had these medical devices that I was using previously, treating injuries and pain and stuff like that. And she'd asked me if I had ever done a remote session. And I said, no, I haven't. And I look up, and all of a sudden there are thousands, maybe trillions. There were so many iridescent light particles that just poured into me. And I instantly knew how to heal people. And it felt like, oh wow, I know how to do this. It was more of like, I remember this. So I started doing remote sessions on people using the medical technology that I had. But then I thought, you know what? I don't think I need those machines. I can do this without them. So I was just being divinely guided through the whole process. And then not too long after that, I was praying out loud for healing for me. I was just in my car because there was just so much pain, and all of a sudden I began speaking in another language. And then I heard, "You're in Earth School." And I said, "Oh, thank you. Finally, I know where I am." Because my whole life, I just felt like I was walking aimlessly here. Like, what is this place? Like, why can't you just wave a magic wand and have everything just happen for you?
Yeah.
And so when I began speaking in this language, I couldn't stop speaking it for 3 days, day and night. It was constant. And I was told, speak this and people will heal. And then I asked, well, what am I speaking? Because I had never heard this before, or anybody speaking this before. And I was told, it's the language of the light of the divine. Speak and people will heal. It was so crystal clear. So that's always a big part of the healing session.
Mm-hmm.
And then not too much longer after that, I asked, like, what else can I do to help me heal? And I get this text message from someone, "Hey, have you ever been to the labyrinth?" And I'm like, "Labyrinth? No, like there's a labyrinth here?" So I go to this labyrinth and I walk it 3 times, and Jesus appears to me. And there was just complete stillness and love and silence. I mean, nothing else existed. And wow, I mean, it was amazing. His body was in human form, and he was wearing this beautiful white robe, and his face was light. It was the brightest, whitest light, and there was a hue of gold around it. And oh my gosh, I mean, this is just stuff that you never forget. So some other things started progressing. Like, I had met someone, and I just threw my arms around him and gave him a hug. And he sent me a text message later, and he said, "You healed me." I wasn't even really tapping into what he needed done or anything. I just was living from my heart. And I thought, oh, that's like, I just had so much love and joy, but it wasn't quite registering with me that, that's what the divine energy was like, truly flowing through me, and that if I touched someone, that they would heal.
So can I just, sorry to cut you off, but so with the healing, there are people that, do courses. They know they have a gift, but they need to learn how to develop the gift and get it to a certain point. But for you, it was more of a download and an intrinsic knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just all happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've never had any classes. It just all was gifted. And I feel like if it was, it felt like I remembered everything because everything felt familiar, but I know it was definitely a gift, because just to have those light particles pour in, I mean, that was just so profound.
Could I ask a question also about before you had the first near-death experience, and you were in the place of just living your daily life and rushing to get your daughter, and we've all been there in that moment of just thinking, I have to get this done. I've got so much pressure to do this and to do everything, right? At that moment, had you, prior to that, first of all, did you have a religious background? Had you, so that when you had the experience after that, you would have known to expect it? Did you ever think about what was beyond this life? Or did it just kind of push you right into it? That moment just transitioned the way of thinking forever? Or I'm always curious, what did you believe going into it? Or did you even have a belief system about the afterlife?
Well, I didn't have the clarity that I have now. And actually, when I was very young, like still in diapers, I was at the neighbor's house, and we lived in a duplex, or maybe it was a fourplex, something like that. But there was this couple, and they were like grandparents to me. So I was always over at their house. And I remember being in diapers. They had a picture on their wall, and it was a picture of this gigantic tree. And on each side of the tree, there was a path. The right side of the tree had a path that was very dark and scary looking, but it led to these rays of light at the end. And on the left side of the tree, it was very happy and bright and inviting, but at the end, it led to darkness. And I stood at the foot of that painting, and I remember thinking, those are rays of heaven, and I choose the path on the right. I remember clearly saying, I choose the light. So then when I was possibly in like third or fourth grade, I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel this presence in my room, and it was very loving. And Mother Mary was at the foot of my bed. And there weren't any words exchanged, but I just felt something was happening that to this day, I don't even have words to describe it. And she was there for a while. And when she left, I laid back down and I flew out my window. Wow. And I began meeting Jesus every night. And I was coming back with wisdom, and I was seeing things like far into the future. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, Jesus appeared to me. I met with Jesus last night. And she said, well, Jesus would meet with his disciples in their sleep. And that was it. Like, there wasn't any more conversation, but I had all of this information to share. And I was raised in the Catholic Church. And so, I'm going to catechism, and I don't recall who I shared some of this stuff with. It could have been at catechism. But all of a sudden, I took on this belief that what was happening was really evil. And it was demonic. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how there was so much confliction. It was just so conflicting for me to fathom, like, Mary and then Jesus, and then everything that was happening, like the visions I was seeing. And I was just prophetic as a child. And I thought, how could any of that be evil? And I took on that belief that it was. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, what did I do? Like, I must be a horrible person to have all of this happening. What did I do wrong? And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to hell. Like, I am doomed no matter what I think, no matter what I see, like, I'm just doomed. So there was that overwhelming fear that I lived in for so long. So when I had that first NDE and I lost my memory, oh my gosh, that was such a huge blessing. I mean, it essentially saved me from myself because I had so much fear, and all of it was taken away. It was incredible. There's no doubt, no fear. You just live from love.
And in the visits that you've had with Jesus or with the other side, was it ever explained to you why you've had 2 NDEs?
No, but it seems like maybe I'm just one of those souls that can't just move through life gently.
Well, getting hit by a Mack truck is certainly the definition of not going through the world softly.
Right.
Oh gosh, I know. And now I know, like, you do not have to get hit by a Mack truck to open up your super consciousness.
Well, now you know that, right? But that's what I was wondering. Actually, I had that question while I was listening to you talk on another show that I was watching. And I was thinking, do you think, I mean, for those of us who haven't had that profound of an experience, is there a way for us to shift consciousness without such an extreme event?
Oh my
Or do
gosh.
you think you could have done it without that?
I actually don't think I could have done it without that. Just because of the fear, I didn't have the support that I needed to help that happen. So the divine stepped in and said, we're going to do it for you.
Right.
Yes.
But the universe will do that. I always say it will come in, and if you're not listening, it will whack you over the head with something. It will take something away from you. It gives you the opportunities to let go of what doesn't serve you. But when you don't listen, it will be like, you know, those waiters that have the that walk up and get the tablecloth and just rip it out from underneath you, and all of a sudden there's no tablecloth. That's how I picture it. When the universe says, all right, listen, I gave you a chance to do it in your way and your timing, and you're not listening. So get ready.
It is just like that. Get rid of that tablecloth. We're going to remove the veil.
So you obviously did go on and become a registered nurse, because the first NDE and the Mack truck was while you were still studying, and you've talked in other podcasts about how, because your memory was shot, they were kind of encouraging you to give it up. But you were getting downloads, so you were able to pass the exams and obviously through the clinicals and attend to the patients, and everybody was safe all the time. When was the shift from registered nurse, so actually being in the, I guess, traditional medical field, to becoming a healer in the more spiritual sense and tapping into those gifts and leaving the actual sort of medicine behind?
I would say when I worked as a nurse, that that spiritual empathy really opened up, and I was feeling what other people were feeling, and that was pretty intense. So I actually ended up shifting, and then I just thought, you know, there was this part of me that just felt like we don't have to do it this way. Like, having the surgeries and doing things the way they do in the medical field, it was like this innate knowing, like, this doesn't make sense to me anymore. There's another way that people can heal and not have so much pain and recovery. It was just that knowing. So I ended up, it was probably 5 years later, I got out of nursing, and then I started a business where it was a spa, and then I added on the medical devices that used energy to heal your body. And the way I found those was I had a hip injury, and it was really severe. I tore the cartilage in my hips exercising, and I just knew, like, surgery is just not for me. And I said, I just had this thought, like somebody invented something that will heal this without surgery. So I waited and I found these devices, and they're the exact match of energy that your body's made of. So I had 8 treatments in 4 days. And while I was being treated, my long-term memory came back on the 3rd day. And then on the 4th day, the tears in my hips healed. So I bought the technology, and then I started treating people with those. And something amazing started happening when I was using these machines. I would just have visions of, because you use these brass plates and there's all kinds of accessories. And I started having visions of where to put the plates and what to do for them. And then I was being told exactly what polarity and exactly what frequency, and people were healing really fast, like faster than normal. And then even sometimes I would set everything up the way I thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden, bloop, nope, we're going to do it this way. And I would have this quick vision and I'd redo everything. So, and then while I was treating somebody with those devices, I was just talking to him, doing what I'm doing. And he looks at me and he goes, "What did you do? You just healed me." And I looked back at the machine and it was off. I forgot to turn it on.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, and this is before my second NDE. So I thought, that's interesting. So all of these little things were happening, which are not so little, but they were leading me to these steps of like embracing the healing abilities that are within me. And so many times, like, it wasn't deliberate to not turn the machines on, but it was like all happening just to show me, like, you don't need these. Like, this is just, it's just a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
So,
could I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Before your first NDE, then, had there ever been incidents in your life where you tapped into that healing energy? Looking back, do you see where you might have been using that? Because it seems like you probably already had that. You were trying to repress it because you learned that it was wrong on some level, right? From a toxic religious belief system, right? But do you think that can you recognize that you did have it prior to the first NDE?
I can't really say that I could recognize that I had the healing gifts, but I definitely had the gifts of clairaudient and clairvoyant and the remote viewing. That was all there.
Do you notice whether your daughter has that also? And I mean, I know you talked about having a daughter, right? And so I'm just wondering, you would be a really great mother for a child who have similar abilities.
Yeah, she does have gifts, and I know that she's going to be tapping more fully into them. Yeah.
I want to ask this is a very personal question, and answer it in any way you would like, or you can tell me that you don't want to answer it. But it's become a theme when we're speaking to people on this show, just talking about their childhood. And I often wonder if a lot of people that work in the spiritual field have trauma in their childhood. And I often wonder if part of their journey and the light worker's journey, often, not always, but often, is you experience trauma when you're younger because it gives you the life experience to be able to be a true leader and way shower in the light field. And so I'm curious, did you have this harmonious childhood, or was there trauma there, and you don't need to go into what the trauma was if the answer is yes, it was there. But I'm curious as to your thoughts just on that theory.
Yes, my childhood was extremely traumatic. Not from anyone in my family, but from age 11 to 17, I was sexually abused, and I had buried the part about the trafficking until until I got really sick with mold. Because I thought, wow, what is it that's hidden so deep within me that needs to be healed, that I would be this sick from mold? And I asked that question before I went to sleep, because it's just a really good way to do it, because you get clarity, and then you can also receive healing while you're sleeping as well. And it was all revealed to me, and I asked for it. I wanted to heal it. And something amazing, so amazing happened. As it was revealed to me, everything was being healed. And which is really amazing, because I didn't have to go through a lot of anything really to have it healed. But because of those experiences, and I've had so many tumultuous experiences, it takes you so deep into empathy and that compassion. And then I was shown how to help other people heal from that trauma too, because it's now coming out, I mean, everywhere. That's what it's been hidden for so long, and people don't have to suffer from it for months, years, before they can be free of all of that and just start living their life and living from their heart instead of their head, and you just get rid of the fear. So all of that has really, I mean, it's just been profound with the experience that I've had, and that I'm able to help people heal from all of theirs too.
Mm-hmm. In a podcast that I watched with you, you had mentioned also how your fascia holds on to so much of your emotions. And we had talked about that in a past episode of this show as well, or we talked about cranial sacral therapy.
Mm-hmm.
What's your experience with healing fascia? And what would you recommend people do if they feel that that's a healing modality that they need?
Well, your body stores everything. And even with my own journey, my tendons and ligaments are hypermobile, and the root of that is not feeling supported. And so if your body, the only way your body can talk to you is by displaying physical symptoms, a pain or an ache or a disease or something like that. And if you just start talking to your body, and sometimes it takes time for your body to start feeling safe, you can simply ask, what am I holding on here? What's stored here? And if you're not getting an answer, you could be holding on to fear, and you could be holding on to judgment as to what's going to come forward. So if that happens, then you want to connect with a younger version of you, whatever age comes forward, that needs to be loved and nurtured and supported. And when your little one, your inner child, feels really safe, you're going to start getting answers. Sometimes even before you ask the question.
I love that.
Have you ever looked into, and I keep bringing this up because when we've talked about healing the fascia and the body storing things, one of the things that I did for myself was yin yoga. And I didn't go there to heal. I went there just because I actually love stretching. And I know that for some people, they go into it and it hurts and it's uncomfortable. I enjoy that discomfort. And I've discovered that the longer you sit in it, it becomes even more enjoyable. But I learned from my teacher about how the hips and especially can store so much trauma. And when we sit all day and everything tightens up, it just sits there as well as in the fascia. And so for me, yin yoga was this incredible release. And I would actually feel, the only way I can describe it is high or drunk. I felt altered when I left in the best possible way, because obviously there's no substances or anything like that. And it was my favorite Sunday night ritual. I would do it other days, but Sundays, and I would just go home and not speak to anyone. Is that something you've ever tried or looked into?
I have done yoga in the past. My sister's actually a yoga instructor. She lives in Michigan, but I'm already so hypermobile. My tendons and ligaments are just super flexible. So yoga isn't really something that would be supportive for me. But there is a tool called the fascia blaster, and that can help release the fascia. You can order it on Amazon. Ashley Black makes it, and you just can rub it over the area where it feels tight. And when you start releasing, you can start releasing the fascia. Your emotions are going to come forward sometimes. So you may just start crying and you don't even know why, but don't hold any judgment. You're just releasing something that's ready to go. So that's a pretty resourceful tool. But stretching definitely is good too.
I'm so curious too, as I'm sitting here with my cat on my lap. I don't know if you can see her at this point, but
at this moment, no, but we could see her before. I should have introduced her as the fourth guest.
I know. She seems to be the guest who always shows up in these shows.
Juliet.
But so she's just stuck to me right now, and I know that Christa, you can talk with pets too, right? And I mean, Natalie as well. We haven't really explored that. But so in what ways did that ability open up after your near-death experiences?
Oh my goodness. So between my first and second NDE, someone had brought their dog to me because he had a tumor and wanted me to treat his dog with the medical devices I had, because they're also used in the veterinary world. And this dog was older, and he had said, he's not going to be with us much longer. And then I heard the dog say, that's not true. Tell him not to say that. That's not true. So I looked at him and I just said, your dog said, don't say that. That's not true. Don't put that on him. So, it just happened. It just happened. And then I was, and then also before my second NDE, I was at the zoo with a friend of mine, and there were some deer there. And there was one deer that I was feeling something. So I walked up to this deer and I just looked into its eyes and I heard, get me out of here. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like I would just pick you up and take you home with me if I could, And I just started talking telepathically to this deer. And I said telepathically, like, I don't really know how else to help you other than I'm just going to wrap you in love. I'm going to fill you up with so much love. And then I felt that there was like a shift for the deer. So it happens really just kind of randomly.
Do you hear plants as well? Because my sister and I were laughing about this last night. I remember when I was younger, and I still do, and I have a house surrounded by plants. But when I was younger, I was in the bathroom and I could hear a plant that my mum had in there. It was a maiden hair fern. And it was like, I need water. And so I started watering this plant. And I remember Mum saying to somebody, it was months later, she goes, I don't understand what's happening. this thing is thriving and it's amazing and I don't understand what's happening. And I laughed because I said, I've been watering it. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, it told me it needed water. And so now it's like a thing that we do. So for me, the animal and the plant world are kind of intertwined. And it gets to the point. So I've always been able to communicate with my animals. But if I get into bed and I haven't watered the plant and they need it, I am not allowed to sleep. I hear them go, okay. So then I have to get out of bed, turn the lights on, go around with the watering can and do all the things. Do you get something similar?
I do. I have this amazing lily plant, and I bought this lily plant in 2023. And I went to the store and I just saw it and its leaves started waving. And I'm like, oh, you're supposed to come home with me. So I bring it home, and the place that I was staying, I was getting ready to move. And the movers were there and they had the plant sitting outside of the moving truck. And I was like, I just thought, I can't put that plant in the moving truck. It has to come with me. Like there's just this amazing connection with this plant. I just love it. And I told him, I said, that plant's coming with me. And the leaves started waving again. So then when I get to my new destination, it's pretty warm and everything's being brought inside and the plant was outside. And then all of a sudden I hear in the sweetest little voice, it's too hot out here for me. So I pick it up. I'm like, oh, I am so, so sorry. I bring it inside and it's nice and happy. And, but when I go to water it, the leaves start moving. And so I bought a couple more plants, like not lily plants, but just a mixture of plants. And when I set them down, it was like, oh, the lily plant has some friends now. But oh gosh, I had this one rose that I bought some flowers, and I had a rose that stayed vibrant for 4 months. That's a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the stem stayed green. It just opened up fully, and it just, oh my gosh, I loved it so much. So there wasn't really any telepathic communication with it, but there was just this love that I felt from it.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say one other thing on this topic. So I never wanted to watch the movie Avatar, had no interest in it because when it came out, it was 3D and it was all these things. I'd gone and bought a DVD and I was given a free copy of Avatar. And have you two ladies watched it?
I haven't, no.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Yeah, long time ago.
Because the reason I bring it up, the thing that I got out of this movie, I barely remember the story, but I remember the connection between the universe and the plants and how they all communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I sat there and went, yes, this makes so much sense to me, that all of these things are so interconnected and that they communicate with each other, and it makes sense as to why I can hear what they're saying. That for me was a very profound thing. So I was curious if you had thought the same. Anne, you have some viewing to do. We'll have to have a discussion about this at some other point.
So many people have told me I need to watch it, and I don't know why. How long is it? I think it might have been that it was long.
I think it's over 3 hours. And like I said, I don't remember the rest of the story. That part for me, it was as if that's why I needed to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched the second one yet.
But I've heard that from so many people, including one of our future guests, this idea that when they go into different states of consciousness or meditation, people can sense that network that science has also proven, the way that trees communicate with each other under the earth with their root systems and how extensive they are. And we just don't think about the energy that's around us all the time. That's what I think is so profound about your story too, Christa, is that you were immersed in just that daily grind where you're just trying to get through all the things you need to do. And that's where, especially women, that's how we have to live a lot of the time. There's just so many responsibilities, and I mean, and men as well, right? That we are balancing things and trying to juggle everything all the time. And it's a rare moment to be able to stop and sort of tap into the energy that's here, or to find peace or meditation. So I'm curious about, ever since this event happened to you, are you really conscious about making time for yourself each day, or how have your practices, your meditation practices or prayer or whatever it is, how has that changed for you?
Oh my goodness. Well, after the second NDE, it changed a lot because I became so hypersensitive to energy from everything that it was like sometimes just too overwhelming. Like there were days when I remember wanting to just go out and get my mail, and I opened the door and I'm like, oh, I can't even go out there. So I'd shut the door and nope, I'm going to just stay in my own space. And so I'm learning to navigate that a lot better. But we're connected to everything, and there's no separation between anything, and everything is energy. So I do meditate a lot. I focus on breathing, because one of the ways that you can just be in the present moment without getting hit by a Mack truck is just to breathe. And just, even just placing your hands on your heart and just taking 3 gentle cleansing breaths, that is going to just pull you out of your head and into your heart. And it's easy and it's quick. So I just really focus on grounding. I ground to the energies of the heavens and the earth energies. I think that's really important. A lot of people are more familiar with just grounding to the earth energies, but it's really more supportive if you connect with the energies of the heavens too. And you just simply envision that you're bringing it down to the top of your head, and it goes all the way down your body, down your legs, and out the centers of your feet. And then you are connecting to this heartbeat that's in the core, at the core of Mother Earth. And when I do this, I can feel the heartbeat of the earth. And then you bring that love and light back up into your feet. And that alone can set your day to be very balanced and centered. And you might even notice that, like, wow, I'm making every green light. Driving, and I'm not hitting any stoplights. Just doing something like that can really bring things into balance. And I also will say I bring in a 0 point energy. And when I say that, everything becomes still. And I'm sure that it will happen for others if they say it too.
So if that's how you ground yourself, do you do the same thing to essentially protect yourself when you're going out into the world? Because like you said, everything is energy. Mm-hmm. And there are times where we have to go into the world and into situations where we can protect ourselves as much as is humanly possible. Mm-hmm. But we live in a very 3D world, and sometimes we have to step into those spaces that just aren't the best, or we don't enjoy the energy of everybody around us. So is that grounding enough to give you the protection, or do you do something else to protect yourself energetically?
The grounding is not enough, because there is so much going on. There's souls walking around everywhere. There's animals walking around. There's just so much. And then we have the discordant energies, and they are always looking for a place to land, and they're looking for a doorway to be opened. So And anything can bring it in, like anger or judgment or unforgiveness. That just opens up the floodgates. So I envision that I am in this cylinder of light, but on the outside of the light, I put mirrors up. So anything that's coming at me, it's going to just bounce right off. And another thing I do is I put the armor of God on. It's a really powerful prayer. You can just Google the armor of God, and that's so powerful. And I also speak in my light language a lot, like when I'm in my car and I'm going into the store or something. Before I go into any environment, like a grocery store, I send in gold light, and then I send in pink light, and I will see energies moving out of there. And that's when I know I can go in, and I'm not going to walk into a web of energy, because people leave their energy everywhere. You can be, you could just take the next step forward in line. For example, like at the grocery store, you could even be walking in a park and somebody has left an imprint of their energy there. And you don't want that coming into your field. You want to be in your own energy. So definitely putting up a shield. You can even envision it's gold. You can refer to it as the gold Christ light, or you can refer to, you can envision that it's purple. You just ask that it's impenetrable. Sometimes I will put myself in a pyramid that is filled with the gold Christ light. And I did an experiment with a friend of mine. And I said, okay, because she had remote viewing, and I said, I want to know if you can see me right now. And she said, yeah, I can. And I said, okay, how about now? And she said, no, you're gone. And it was because I had put myself in that pyramid that was filled with the gold Christ light. So that's really effective. And anybody can do it. But I really recommend it.
I always learned to protect myself in gold light, which is what I normally do. But for me, when I'm going into a situation that I know is really dark, and I never intended for this to happen, but it's almost like liquid gold is pouring onto me, because for whatever reason, when this started happening for me, it became like a shield. So it was not only the gold light and the gold energy, but it was impenetrable to these other energies, whereas I felt sometimes like the gold light wasn't enough. And I'm talking about going into situations where I know I'm about to be energetically attacked, because sometimes there are people in our lives that we just cannot get away from. So it's a weird thing. I've never had anybody else tell me that that's what they were getting, but I was just like, it works for me. I feel like it stopped some of the energetic knives going into my back. And
yes. And if there's someone that maybe their vibration is lower, without holding any judgment, you can put them in a love bubble. I call it a love bubble. Just envision that they're in a heart, and it will shift things for them. I saw this man, and he was really angry, and he was maybe 30, 40 feet from me. I don't know what was going on exactly, but I just saw that he was in distress, and I just envisioned him in a heart. And all of a sudden it was like, whatever was going on, it just left.
So you talked about how you could see energy from people, and you could see the cords of energy, right? What about things like music? I'm trying to think of what else, or art, things that were created by someone who might not be in a good place, or things that were created when they were in a good energetic state. I don't know why I just thought of that while you were talking, but I'm curious about whether you can sense energy from those sorts of things also.
Oh my gosh, yes. Absolutely. Because whatever somebody is doing, their energy is going into it. You know, if they're angry and they're cooking food, that anger energy is going to be into that food. So you want to pray over your food, send light to it. And I actually began painting in 2021. This woman had invited me to her house to learn how to paint with watercolor. And I thought, you know, I'm really just a paint by number. That's really all I know how to do. And she said, I'll teach you. So she just showed me what to do. And I put the paint on the paper and it took the shape of a person's face. And I said, this is a person. And she goes, oh my gosh, that's my dad. And I was like, wow, okay. I think this painting is for you then, you know? And it literally just took seconds for it to happen. So I ordered some paints online and some paper, and I just started experimenting with it. And literally, like, the paintings only take maybe 30 to 60 seconds, and angelic beings were appearing. Some of the paintings, you know, had animals coming forward, and some of them were telling the future, and it was telling a story about the past. But I just thought, wow, you know, I don't think about anything. I just do it. But everything we do, our energy goes into it. So just do it with love.
It really doesn't sound like there's a question as to what you were put on this earth to do. I mean, it's channeling through you, whether you want it to or not, whether you're aware of the gift or not. I'm curious. So obviously there's been a lot of talk about Mother Mary and God and Jesus. What do you think about people that talk about star seeds in terms of the Atlanteans, the Palladians, all of that? Do you think that, or in your version of all of this, does that exist, the star seeds, or no?
I think it all exists. There's so many different layers and realms. What I don't think exists is 5D. People are talking about 5D. And 5D, maybe it's just a term that they use for a shift that they're experiencing. Because I just went from my experience, I mean, true understanding is from experiencing. So, and we all experience it differently. Like, I went from a very low vibration of fear to a super high vibration to where the veil is completely gone. But there are different layers and there's so many different beings. I mean, I don't doubt any of it. And nothing is too weird for me. Like, if somebody says this is super weird, I'm like, oh no, nothing is too weird. It's just all awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, have you ever seen something though that took you aback, or where it started to bring out fear in you, or do you accept everything with love?
I experience a lot of different things, but I feel like I'm in such a deep place of faith that I don't have to have a complete understanding of everything. For example, sometimes, like, I will just be sitting there and all of a sudden I feel like I'm going into another portal. And sometimes I'm going forwards, and then there's times when I feel like I'm going backwards. And then I will start to see these geometrical patterns. And I've just surrendered to what my soul already knows. And I think that too plays a role in allowing it to happen. Because if you have to constantly try to figure this out and figure that out, you're just putting yourself back into your head. And I prefer to think less.
Well, when you think less, the messages come through in a much easier way, don't they?
Yes. I mean, they just pour in. It's effortlessly. It's just so easy.
So what are your strongest of the clairs, or are all of them strong for you?
They're all really strong. I would say the most overwhelming one is the clairsentience, where you can feel. That is intense, because I feel other people's emotions, and I also feel what's going on in their physical body too. And usually, for example, I was experiencing heart palpitations, and the next day someone had scheduled a healing session, that they're having heart palpitations, and then someone else, was experiencing some issues with their appendix. And I thought, oh gosh, I just knew, this is not mine. And then I heard from a person where their appendix had ruptured. So that part is really the most intense. I'm not afraid to see anything, and I'm not afraid to hear anything, but the feeling of the pain and the suffering of others, that's overwhelming. That's overwhelming. And I haven't exactly figured out how to make that less overwhelming.
And how do you do your healings? Are they always in person? Are they distance healings? What works best for what you do?
Well, I do most of them distance, mostly remotely, but randomly, like if I go out, I always I just ask God, put someone in my path that needs help. Because that's why I came back here. I came back to help people. And it will always happen. So that's when I will do a healing for somebody in person.
Anne, do you have any other questions?
I was thinking of a question, and I'm like, how can I express this? I just feel like you had this really wonderful opportunity to have a mission sort of ram into you, right? Literally, that it just came to you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us, right, we don't get that flash, right? So since this all happened, have you been able to advise people on the way to best seek their own personal missions?
Well, when people reach out to me for healing sessions, I help them release whatever is blocking them from stepping onto their true path. So that's something that I'm really grateful for, that I can support people with.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it really just comes from releasing the old, getting rid of what isn't for you anymore. And whenever you get rid of something old, you're always going to bring in a blessing for something new to happen.
Right.
There's been a lot of that talk in the last few weeks with between Anne and I, when we've been preparing for all this sort of stuff, and when I've been doing my channeling videos. It's all been about releasing everything that's old, for that exact reason. Nothing new can come in if you're hanging on tightly to everything that's sort of sitting there that doesn't serve you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
when you need the waiter to come in and rip the tablecloth.
Right.
Yes. And it's not just emotional stuff, it's physical things too. I had this feeling like I didn't want to have any of my stuff anymore. I mean, I wanted to get rid of my furniture. I was ready to just get rid of it all. And that's what I did. I donated all of it. I kept my essentials, and but everything else went. And oh my gosh, that was so freeing. It was just amazing. And when I did that, when I got rid of all that stuff, more things opened up. It was just like everything just started happening faster. Like the healing was happening faster. The energy was moving faster. So definitely clean out your closet or your pants.
Right.
One of our guests.
Logistically. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say one of our guests who's coming up in May was saying exactly the same thing to Anne and I on Monday. It was exactly the same thing. He had all these things and they were in storage waiting for them. And they got back to it and opened it up and said, let's get rid of it all.
Well, the thing is that I've got stuff in a storage unit and stuff here that I really want to get rid of. And it's sort of logistically, how in the world do you get rid of all this stuff? You know, it's really a process. That's for sure.
You know, one day I just said, I'm done with all of this. And I said, I want someone to just pull up with a truck and I want to unload it. I go out to my garage, I open the garage door, and here comes a truck with a guy. And I'm like, this is the truck. They're going to start taking stuff. And that's exactly what happened. So just put it out there.
Okay. I'm going to then. That's a great suggestion.
You have the definition of manifester. Everything just.
Yeah, that I've noticed that's amazing. One time when I was eating lunch with a friend, I was so grateful. Like I was just so happy. And I just thought to myself, I really need more protein in my diet. And we ate all our food. And when I took them to throw the containers away, they were full of food. They were full of protein. And she was like, what is happening? We ate our food. Nobody brought us anything. And I said, you know what? We just say thank you. Just say thank you. But there were some other amazing things that happened. I went to go visit my nieces and nephews, and I have family that live in Tucson. And I was taking them breakfast, and it was a surprise, and everything was hot, and I was super excited. I was only 10 minutes away from them, and here comes a train. So I stop, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder how long this train is going to take. Because, you know, I wanted to get them the food there hot. And I just went right back into that feeling of joy and excitement and how excited they're going to be. And it was like you turn the light off and then you flip it back on for one split second. And I ended up on the opposite side of the train track. And the train is still going. And I look in my rearview mirror and I'm like, oh, thank you. That is awesome. And, you know, you just go on your way.
I want to go on a trip with you. Who knows what we would experience, but I feel like it would be a good time.
It would be amazing for sure. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, amazing things are going to happen.
Wow.
See, I think I've manifested some pretty incredible things, but I don't even have anything that compares to that.
No, I have nothing like that.
Next level in the best possible way.
Yeah, it was awesome. And there was another time when this was in 2020. I was still had so much healing to do, and I had so much pain, and all I wanted to do was just go to the grocery store. I wanted to drive the car. I wanted to be outside. And I get into my car and I'm so happy and grateful that I was just able to walk to my car. And then I'm driving and I'm grateful for my car. And I come to this stoplight and my light turns green, and then there's a car coming from the opposite direction. And as soon as I start to go, they floor it and they drive their vehicle. And I'm just in this observation mode because I'm just still like so grateful that I'm not in bed. And I'm just feeling love and joy. And I just am observing this vehicle, and his car, it just passes right through mine. And he's screaming. And I just went into another dimension and passed right through his vehicle. Like it was nothing. And I'm like, that's what's supposed to happen here in Earth School. Not all of this nonsense that's happening.
Wow.
See, I know that you're not a believer in the 5D, but to me, that's the definition for some people, the difference between 3D and 5D. In the 3D, you would get T-boned by this car. In the 5D, you're tapping into everything on a spiritual level, and we're able to achieve feats like you just did.
Yeah, I guess the 5D term, it's just a description, but I don't think it really defines it adequately as to the amazing things that can happen for people.
And so you talked about how with the NDEs you saw future life experiences and things like that. So have you done, because it's kind of one question, but there's parts to it. Have you done past life regressions, and do you know a lot about your past lives? And do you think this is your last earthly life, or do you know that there's more coming?
Well, I am absolutely positive that this is my last time here, unless I decide to come back again. And I really don't think I'm going to. I just have this deep knowing within my soul that this is it for me. And I am so content with that. So during this lifetime, I'm seeing some of the past lives come forward. Like one day, for example, and we've all had traumatic past lives. We've all endured some pretty horrific things. I had this pain in my left leg, and I looked down and I saw that there was a barbed wire stuck in my leg, and it was obviously from a past life. So I just pull it out, and then my leg doesn't hurt anymore. So that was just something that I was clearing from a past life. And I really believe that we're all doing that. The stuff in our past life is coming forward in this lifetime for it to be healed.
Wow.
No more wires, though. No, thank you.
Because the reason I'm fascinated by that sort of question is I've had a soul path reading, and I've done past life regression, and I have said for a long time, if I'm not at the end, I'm so close. And my soul path reading, she had a look at all of my numbers, and she went, "Oh, if this isn't your last life, you're very close to the end." And I was like, it's what I've been saying for a while. So I'm always fascinated, but I think a lot of people that are leading the way as light workers and way showers, I think that often the reason they are the way showers is because they are closer to the end of the incarnations here, and then we get to experience whatever it is that comes next.
Yes. And every time we come back here, the veil is thinner and thinner. And you just get to this point to where, like, you just know. Like, you know that this place is, well, when I was little, when I was like, where in the heck am I? Like, I'm not even from here. What am I doing here? My mom would say, go clean your room. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like putting my hand out, and I'm like, why isn't my room cleaning itself? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, me too. That was me too. To explain that to my mom. That's why I couldn't do it.
Right?
But
Yes.
yeah, I used to remember asking my mom, when are we going home? I want to go home. So I don't remember where I thought home was, but it's definitely one of those things where you sort of look around sometimes and think, what is this? So you at least found out, oh, this is Earth School. So there's that.
Yeah, so many years later, after walking aimlessly, like, what am I even doing? What is this place? Why is there so much resistance? And too much. So I had so much relief when I was told, you're in Earth School. And I'm like, oh, thank you. This is just a temporary place that we all come to.
So I have a theory, and this is a very new theory, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on this, Christa. So when I was younger, I was terrified of death, to the point that to have an alarm clock in my room, like an old-fashioned alarm clock, not a digital one, but where you could hear the ticking of the second hand, that would get in my head, because every time I heard it tick, I'm thinking I'm another second closer to death. And I remember not having an understanding of my connection to the other side, but I remember thinking, I like Natalie. I'm not ready for her to go. Like, I'm not ready for her existence to end. And I mean, that didn't really make sense at the time. And my mum, in fairness to her, was a wonderful sort of spiritual teacher, in a sense that she opened us up to spirituality and reincarnation, and we did meditation and all these things. So while she may not have been a leader, she certainly expanded the minds and the consciousness of myself and my sisters. So the reason I tell you that is I've been speaking recently with a friend who, her son, I was talking about their human design charts and their astrological charts, and we started talking about her son, and I don't know why I told the story about how I was so fearful of death, to the point I would not sleep. My mum I would call for her, she would come and get me, and she would get me out of bed and get me doing chores. But the fear was so real, I would be shaking from top to bottom. And I don't know why I told her this, and she looked at me and she said, "That's what my son does." And she said, "It's exactly the same thing." And I find it fascinating, because I have always joked that her son is like an old man reincarnated. He's 10, and it's hilarious the thing that he fixates on. He's obsessed with Judaism, and so he goes to Hebrew school and does all these things, and he feels very connected to this religion. His parents are Jewish, but they're not super religious people. And I'm like, he is this old man. There are these connections to this past life. And the fear with him, and in terms of death, I found that fascinating, because the parallels are just he's exactly where I used to be, and at the same age. And so I tell this long story to ask the question, do you think that in situations like that, it's possible that because children are obviously closer to the spiritual realm, because we've just come from there, that there is a connection without an understanding of what's going on? And so that's where fear gets attached to these beliefs and understandings of Earth School.
Yes, I think that is part of it, but also it's a past life that's coming forward, that they're essentially, they just brought it with them and it wants to be healed in this lifetime. But then also, when you're young, kids have imaginary but not so imaginary playmates. They're not imaginary. Like, they can see them and they can talk to them. And so the veil is lifted until somebody closes it. And they can just simply say, "That's not true," and make the child doubt themselves. But yeah, that's incredible. The only time that I started to fear death was after I had shared some of the prophetic messages, and someone had told me like what was happening was evil. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to hell. And then I was totally afraid of dying. And, that was just a big lie.
And have you ever experienced things like that, in terms of that fear of what happens at the end of this particular life?
I don't think I've ever felt that. I've never felt afraid of dying. I think the only thing I remember similar to that when I was a child was trying to comprehend the idea of God. I just always remembered thinking, okay, it's this, but it's more, and just trying to get my head around that concept. But I've never been afraid of dying. And actually, I've been in a couple of accidents, and one of them, it was right after high school, and I was a passenger in my boyfriend at the time's car, and we were broadsided by a drunk driver who ran a stop sign. And while it was happening, like as the car was spinning, and I don't even know, like in that whole process, I just remember feeling my energy expand and like feeling out of my body, but also knowing I was going to be okay no matter what. I didn't have any visions and anything like that. But then I just, I remember coming to with the paramedic looking at me, and like, and you could see that he was afraid when he was a young paramedic. And as he was looking in, I just will never forget the look on his face. And I was like, I'm okay. I just felt more like he needs to be calmed down because he's afraid of what he's seeing, or what he's going to see. And then in another accident, I just remember feeling that same energy expansion in the process of it. So and I've always wondered afterwards, why wasn't I afraid? Because when I was little, I used to be such a scaredy cat about just worldly things, not, like, oh no, someone's going to break in, or having to have all the lights on or whatever. But I've never been afraid of death, and I've never doubted the existence of God, or, a universal energy. And I don't know why. So, but as you were saying that, I always remember hearing the clock in my room as well, growing up, but I never had the fear of time's ticking away,
And yet, as an adult on a spiritual path, I don't have any one of those fears. If you put a clock in my room now, the sound would probably irritate me just because I like it to be quiet. I like stillness, but it wouldn't be that fear-inducing thing. And I remember that I used to get these waves of this fear when my mind would get caught in these sort of thought patterns. And yet I can't tell you the last time that ever happened, because I know that what's coming isn't scary and isn't a bad thing. But I honestly thought I was the only human being that experienced things at that level. And then to hear a friend's child going through exactly the same thing. So now I've become her go-to. What's the best way for me to navigate this? And so I just tell her what I needed, and hopefully that helps her son. So it's just crazy. Now, should we get to the questions that we ask everybody?
We should, but Natalie,
Yes.
what did you need? I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat. Well, what helped turn it around for you?
Do you know what? I don't know that there's any one way to handle all of this. One of the things was, we did have, my childhood home was built either on top of or very close to an Aboriginal burial ground. And there were things that were going on in this house. And when I think I was about 13, Mum did bring some people in to clear the house out. And that made a huge difference for me. That was one of the things that helped. But I mean, my mum would talk to me, and she always answered questions. I would ask, what is heaven like? What is this like? And she would talk to me. I think the only other thing that may have helped more would have been if there had have been more of a spiritual explanation, as opposed to heaven is beautiful and heaven is whatever you want it to be. And, and I would always say, are you going to die? I don't want you to die. And she'd say, I'm not going anywhere for a long time. And I understand that with children, you have to find a balance in how to answer it. And I think that if I was the mother in that situation, I would be talking about earth school, essentially. We just come here to learn these lessons, and we come here and we choose to be together and things like that. But I mean, this was a long time ago. But I think having open communication, I think telling a child to get over it, which did happen sometimes, and I'm not angry at my mum for that. I think we're all human and we get frustrated. Just go to bed, child. You're irritating me again tonight. Not that she ever said that, but it was just, go to sleep. Just go to sleep. And getting to sleep has been an issue my entire life. Once I'm out,
Mhm.
a hurricane could happen around me and I would not wake up, but getting to sleep has always been that issue. So when you have a child that's not sleeping and has all these questions, I understand the frustration, but I think the level of communication, I did go to my friend's house and we did a clearing, or I did a clearing for her just the other day, and apparently he slept better and longer than he's ever slept before. So we're going to go back and we're going to do that a few times just to level out the energy and just sort of help him through it. And I think part of it is a growing thing. This is the last thing I'll say on this, when babies are growing, and I know this from my friends having babies, there are all these apps that teach you, you're possibly going to have a couple of rough weeks because the baby's development is growing so much and its brain can't comprehend what's happening to its body. And so they get grisly and uncomfortable because they don't understand. I almost feel like it's the same thing, especially sometimes for these older souls that are coming in. They're in this new body and they've got these tethers to the spiritual realm, but they're not sort of fully immersed in the earth school yet. And I think that it's almost like growing pains. And I hit a point where it kind of just stopped, and then I continued forward. And I think that my spiritual development has helped even more because it's given me a deeper understanding and removed any of the questions that I may have had. So, all right. So, Christa, we ask everybody 4 questions whenever they come onto our show. We ask everybody the same 4 questions because we think that these are fascinating. So, question number 1.
Wait 1 second. My computer is plugged in, but it says the battery is low. So I have to figure out what the heck that is because my computer's going to shut up.
Oh no.
This
Hold on
is
1 second.
This is Mercury shadow. All the Mercury retrograde things have been going on these past few days. Yesterday and the day before for me, my phone has not been cooperative at all.
Christa, if you want to go plug it in, I can take your shot out here for a second. Oops.
Different
Okay.
outlet. Hold
I'll
on.
put you back in. All right. So it's just us. But Natalie, I have to say, going back to your story that, and I'll keep an eye on to see when Christa's ready, that I was really afraid of going to sleep, though.
Oh, were
I had
you?
a really hard time going to sleep. But I think it had more to do with dreams, probably, or nightmares, which I think also when you're young are connected to probably previous life memories.
Yeah, I think for some children, they're more connected to that realm. I remember my nephew, when my mum passed, he was talking to her constantly. And there was a day where it was mum's birthday. We'd gone to her grave to just sort of celebrate the first birthday since her passing. And we're standing around and my nephew was getting annoyed because he's saying Bubba and he's trying to hand her a flower. And it was almost like she was putting her hand out to take it. But then when he would let go of it, it would fall to the ground and he was getting really annoyed. And we're sort of watching this and at first thinking it's super cute. And then we realized after a while we were standing in a full circle, but there was one spot that was empty, which would have been where my mum was standing. And he would talk to her all the time. There was a time where my sister was leaving my grandparents' house and my nephew's waving. And my sister said, "Who are you waving to?" And he said, "Judja." And we're Polish, so babcia and Judja is grandmother and grandfather. And he was like, "No, I'm waving to Judja." And he saw everything. And I think, I really do think that those tethers to the spiritual realm are much stronger in children than what we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think
we've got Christa back.
I'm watching. She's back.
Oh, and you're muted again, Christa.
Oh, no.
What?
I'm still saying that.
Okay, should we just power through the questions and then we will let you
And then
go?
I'll be done.
Well, if it shuts off,
Sure,
then
we'll
I'll
If
just
it shuts,
I'll
okay.
move to a different spot, and then
Well, if it shuts off, we'll just decide, that was
was
the end.
universe saying that's it. So
All right.
we'll just power through them. There's 4 questions and then we'll be done. So first of all, what makes you laugh?
oh my gosh, what makes me laugh? I laugh at all kinds of things. I'm constantly laughing at myself. Oh, yeah. I mean, I probably laugh at myself more than anything.
All right. Well, okay, good. So here's question 2. What is your biggest spiritual influence?
What is my biggest spiritual influence? I tell me more. Explain that question to me.
What
I'm not.
or who? Even is there one person who's been your biggest spiritual influence?
You know, it's just the divine. The divine. Jesus,
Yeah.
Mary, and all of the angels. That's my
And-
biggest influence.
And what would your advice be to people on how to transcend fear? Because that's a huge thing that's going on right now. There's so much fear in the world.
Know that the universe has your back, and fear it's a lie. It's all a lie. Because when you can let go of that fear and you step into your truth and you take your power back, because fear drains you. When you get into your power, oh my gosh, amazing miracles are going to start happening for you. It's like the floodgates of heaven just open up for you.
Wow. All right. Well, our 4th question is, what's the best piece of spiritual advice that you've ever been given?
Let's see. Actually, it's just live from your heart. And it's just from my own experience, is just to live from your heart and to forgive anybody who's ever hurt you. Because if you're holding on to unforgiveness, then you're keeping your energy attached to that. And whatever you put your attention to, you're going to bring that into your field. And now more than ever, like with everything that's going on, you want to keep your energy field as clear as possible. Because it just seems like it's easier more than ever for low vibrations to come in. So yeah.
I love all of those answers, and fear is a lie, I think, is going to be one of my new sayings. I absolutely love that because I see fear permeating everything. Christa, thank you so much for joining Anne and I and letting us ask you all these questions.
Thank you.
It has been so wonderful having you with us. Next week, we are back at 2:00 on Tuesday with, I always pronounce her name incorrectly, Anne, so I want Leanne
Marama.
Thank you. I'm always scared I
Tuesday, or it is Tuesday.
It's Tuesday at 2.
Yes.
Thank you. So that's Pacific time. So make sure you join us for that. We are going to have all of Christa's details in the description below. So if you want to follow her on Instagram, find her website and learn more about her, that will all be there for you. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel so you can keep watching Gemini Rising, make sure you do that. Christa, thank you so much. And thank you for always doing this with me. We will see you all next week.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.